Hello there and welcome to the Double Digit Hockey Show. I am your host, John Eastope, and I thank you for joining me here today on this show. Very awesome to be able to team up with the guys at Amateur Sports Television for our debut broadcast on their service. Looking forward to this partnership and getting this going in the long term. Joined today by a very special guest. He is a producer at the Fan 960 in Calgary. He's also I lost Riley. Let's see if I can get him back here. Well, I wait to reconnect with my guest, Riley. He is a producer from the Fan 960. He's also a fill-in play-by-play guy for the Calgary Canucks of the AJHL. Riley Pollock joins me on the show today. Riley, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about what everyone else is talking about to start. And this is a global pandemic, so interesting time around the hockey world. We go from zero hockey to all the hockey. How are you enjoying the beginning of the NHL season?
Oh, I'm loving it. I've loved the North Division so far. It's been super exciting hockey. I have found that I'm not watching American teams as much because there's so much North Division action going on, but caught a little bit of at least a couple games every single night, and I couldn't be happier that hockey's back.
I like what Elliot Friedman was talking about when he's on his radio hits. He feels like he's doing a 7-team league rather than covering a 31-team league because of the North Division. Have you been able to catch any of those U.S. divisions?
I'm a big fan of Alex Ovechkin, so I've watched a few Washington Capitals games off the start, and then he wasn't playing for a little while. But there's a few games that I've caught for sure, but definitely really focused on the North Division so far this season.
I don't think you're alone in this part of the border. So let's get to it today. Let's talk a little bit about what we've seen around the National Hockey League. Those who may know you know that you are a Habs fan. Flames and Habs just came off a back-to-back. Split those back-to-back games. What have you seen from your Montreal Canadiens early in the season?
I've seen a lot of depth so far. It seems like they can just roll four lines consistently. It seems like all four of those lines are getting basically the same amount of ice time every single night, and I'm sure that's a coach's dream. So very, very deep. I think their defense is the best I've seen in a very long time. So, and then you have the tandem of Price and Jake Allen on the back end. I really don't see a weakness on this Montreal Canadiens team. They don't really have a star, I would say. Nick Suzuki might be able to be that eventually, but maybe they don't have the go-to guy, I guess. But depth-wise, I haven't seen a team like this maybe ever from the Habs since I've really been able to follow them. So very deep, very skilled, fast, and strong. They've gotten better in all assets, or all facets, I should say, in the offseason, and they've looked really good so far.
Yeah, I did a preview show before the season began, and I took it in the teeth because I picked Montreal to be in the top two of the division. They're making me look really good right now, and one of the reasons that I picked Montreal is because they have three guys that can play on three separate lines that you hate to play against. You got Corey Perry, you've got Brendan Gallagher, and you got Josh Anderson, who can do it at both ends of the ice. It's hard to see another team matching up that deep with those kind of pests, those three guys on that team. What have you seen from the recently acquired Corey Perry and Josh Anderson that allowed Montreal to do this kind of a move?
Well, I really have liked Corey Perry in the 3 games maybe now that he's been in with Montreal. Scored in the first game that he played with them and then made a beautiful pass to Brendan Gallagher on the power play in that first game against the Calgary Flames. So, I mean, I've never liked Corey Perry when he's been on other teams, but it's nice to have him on Montreal when you cheer for them. So I think he's been really good. Josh Anderson is a lot faster than I thought he was. I knew that he was more of a power forward type guy that can put the puck in the net, but he's got a bit of speed to his game and his shot is nasty as well. So I've really liked him. And I mean, what can you say about Tyler Toffoli as well? I mean, he has 6 goals in, 7 games with the Habs and 5 of them coming against his former team. So I've really liked the new additions to the team. Edmondson's brought a bit more physicality to that blue line that already was pretty big. So I've really liked all the additions to the Montreal Canadiens, especially up front.
I'm glad you said Tyler Toffoli because that's where I was headed next. A lot of people were saying that Montreal wasn't going to have the goal scoring ability coming into the season. Like, where are they going to get these goals from? Well, that hasn't seemed to be a problem from the early in the season. How important is Toffoli to that offense for you in Montreal?
He's been very important so far. I mean, they were almost scoring at 5 goals per game before they got shut out in this last game. So they've scored a lot of goals. It's come from a lot of areas, and Toffoli was a little quiet in the first couple games, and then against Vancouver, he just exploded. So it's been nice to see some goals from him. Suzuki's been dishing the puck around nicely, and they're getting goals from everywhere. It's really is a depth type of team, and Toffoli's leading the way so far, and it's a nice pickup, and I'm glad Vancouver wanted to let him go.
I'm sure you are. Looking down the middle for the Montreal Canadiens, another question mark coming into the season was their depth at center. But they've had 2 guys really emerge this season, young kids who had really good junior careers, really played well internationally. Kotkaniemi and Suzuki, as you mentioned him earlier, have really started to come into their own. How have you seen their beginning of their season so far?
Well, Nick Suzuki's been unbelievable. I think he's a future star and for sure the first-line center of this Habs team for a lot of years to come. I think he had 7 points in his first 7 games this year up until the shutout, so he's been really good. Kotkaniemi's brought a physicality that I didn't really see from him the first couple seasons. It seems like he's filled out a little bit and he's willing to use the body a little bit more. So I know he got ran over by Dubé the other game, but it's a give and take, I guess, for him. But yeah, I've really liked Kotkaniemi physically, and I think he can fill that 2-3 center role probably for a good portion of his career. And it's kind of pushed Phillip Danault down the lineup a little bit, but he's still been very good as well. So they've got 3 pretty good centers on that team, and then you kind of fill in on that 4th line as needed. But yeah, the 2 young guys emerging has really helped this Habs team off to a good start this year. And we saw it in the bubble as well. Suzuki and Kotkaniemi were much better in the bubble than they had been in the regular season.
Yeah, for sure. Phillip Danault, you mentioned just there, he's probably, when people list off players that don't get enough credit in the National Hockey League or the most underrated players in the National Hockey League, he's on my list. He's a guy that should be in the Selke nomination every year. What do you see from Phillip Danault as a fan of the team?
I think he's a really, really good two-way center. He gets it done in the defensive end and then chips in offensively as well when needed. He's on that line with Tatar and Gallagher, which has been pretty good so far this season. They can play a shutdown role or chip in offensively, especially Tatar. He's a pretty good goal scorer. Has surprised me since he came over in that trade for Max Pacioretty. But yeah, Phillip Danault for sure is underrated in my opinion. I think he's a very, very good second-line center. I'm not sure that first-line role was something that was going to be successful forever for the Montreal Canadiens, but now that Nick Suzuki has been able to probably become the first-line center, I think Danault is perfect in that second-line role and for sure is underrated. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the player. If there was a way for my team to trade for him, I would definitely look at it and bring him in. The guy that the Calgary Flames have that plays a similar role, but he's off to kind of a slow start this year. I wanted to get your thoughts on Michael Backlund and what you've seen from him so far in this season.
Yeah, it was a slow start for Backlund. I feel like he's kind of a career slow starter. It seems like it happens every season, but I thought he was a lot more engaged in that 2-0 win. He was physical. He got a little aggressive with a few players on the Montreal Canadiens. He put home that empty netter at the end of the game. So hopefully that 2-0 game where I felt like all of the Flames really brought the battle level up to another notch, which they hadn't really had all season. And I think that could have been led by Michael Backlund. He was battling with Gallagher there. He was just more aggressive. And that's what you like to see from, I would say, probably the best third line center in the NHL, if not top 5 for sure.
That's high praise for Michael Backlund. I'm a big fan of Backlund, what he brings. He's played with a lot of different guys throughout this season so far for the Flames. That quote-unquote depth that the Flames have, we might have started to see that come to fruition with the return of Dubé against Montreal on Saturday there. Speak to what you've noticed about the depth of the Flames so far.
Well, there's a bit more to be wanted, I think, from some of the guys that they brought in the offseason. Levo, Simone, and Nordstrom haven't been great offensively for this team. They've kind of been unnoticeable for a lot of it, to be honest with you. But it's nice that you can have that depth. I think Dubé coming back into the lineup really helps. It just seems like when he's out, they're just missing something in that top six. So it was great for him to come back. I think they are a deep team, and I think those guys still can get going. I was in the offseason, I was like, oh, did they do enough, I guess, in the forward group? But then as you look at them on paper, it's been pretty, especially moving Lindholm to the center, I think has really helped them out. Now they have to figure out what to do on the right wing going forward, I think. But Lindholm to center has been unbelievable. I think him and Tkachuk as a pair is the best pair two-way for sure on this Flames team. So they are deep. The Tanev addition has been amazing. Markstrom is everything that we've hoped he would be so far. So the signings and the depth are good. We just hope for a little bit more from those guys at the forward position going forward.
I'm interested to get your point on this as well. When the Flames were doing their preseason stuff and they were forming what they were calling these pairs rather than loading up two lines, for me, I loved the move. I loved it because you had your Lindholm to center. You still had your Gaudreau Monahan, who you could shelter a little bit, give him those offensive starts. And then whoever plays with Michael Backlund always seems to have a very good year. Just look at guys like Joe Colburn. Is that a positive for you, or would you rather see them stack two lines and try to just go head-to-head with teams?
I like the depth. I like the depth on three lines for sure. Their fourth line hasn't been too good. I liked them in the last game, but those three lines for sure. I love the pairings. You can have Monahan and Gaudreau in that offensive role. You give them a bunch of offensive zone starts. Don't try and rely on them too much defensively because that's not their game. They're never going to be amazing two-way players, but we've seen it. I mean, Gaudreau's off to a very good start. Monahan's played a lot better than he did last year. And then you have Tkachuk and Lindholm to kind of do a bit of both. And then Backlund, of course, is a defensive zone guy. I mean, he started his career as more of a defensive guy. He's found the offense at times in seasons for sure, but you want Michael Backlund to be that win the draw in the defensive zone kind of guy. And I think with the move to the pairs system, kind of, it's the guys on the right wing haven't been amazing on those pairs, but the pairs have been really good. So if they can find the right chemistry with right wingers with those three pairs, then I love the move for sure. I think it's been a great adjustment by this Flames team so far this season.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. It hasn't been all rosy, though, with these pairs and these lineups. There seems to be a disgruntled forward, but at the same time, he's not a disgruntled forward. Let's have the Sam Bennett conversation real quick here. Your thoughts on what should the Flames do with Sam Bennett, and if they keep him, where do you see him fitting in this lineup ultimately?
I personally think that if there's they have to hang on to him unless there's something that blows them away, in my opinion. He's part of that depth on this Flames team, and I think it'd be a lot easier to move his rights in the offseason or expose him to Seattle. I think that's probably the way to go unless something knocks your socks off for Sam Bennett, but I don't see it coming. I don't think his value's too high. I mean, some teams probably think that he's still salvageable in a top six role. I'm more of the opinion that he's a middle six guy. I feel for Sam Bennett. I mean, he looks so good in the playoffs all the time. He looks good in that center role, but they're too deep down the middle for him to just be given that center role, in my opinion. And I'm not sure that you can just give him a spot in the top six either. I know that people like Levo have gotten it and he hasn't shown a whole lot, but people say that Bennett hasn't been tried in the top six that often, but I mean, I've seen him with Johnny and Monty quite a bit. He hasn't really excelled in that role. So I think he's a middle six guy, and I think he needs to show a little bit more to the team if he really wants that trade, because I mean, what are you getting for Sam Bennett at this point? A third or a fourth, maybe another guy that's kind of like him. Yeah. I've heard, I think it was on Overtime the other night, someone offered Jake Virtanen for Sam Bennett straight up, and I would do that in a heartbeat, in my opinion. I think both guys need a change of scenery, and both of them have the ability to be decent offensive players. So I would do that one in a heartbeat for sure if that got offered, but there's not a whole lot that I can think of that would blow the socks off Flames management that would make them want to trade Sam Bennett at this point.
Yeah, he's definitely a diminished asset at the moment for the Flames. I liken his beginning of his career a little bit to what Michael Backlund has, and I wonder if there's some chemistry long-term between Bennett and Backlund on that third line, the line that's similar to what Montreal has, a team that can play that two-way game and has the opportunity to be able to score goals as well. Interesting conversation. There's a big debate going on Twitter right now about it. If anyone wants to join it, because it's not hard to find out there. So when Elliot says one thing and Eric Francis says another thing, it definitely leads to some fun on Twitter for sure. Let's move on though. We're going to talk about another disgruntled forward who got his way, and how he got his way seems to be up for debate. But the Winnipeg Jets swoop in and they make the move and they bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois. In your view, what does Pierre-Luc Dubois add to the Winnipeg Jets?
It probably makes them the most deep team at center or skilled team at center in the entire NHL. I mean, to have him and Scheifele as a 1-2, and then you still have Stastny there, who you could move to the wing if wanted and, make that top six even better. It just brings so much center depth to that team. He's a strong kid on the puck. I think he's just kind of scratching the surface of what he can be. I think it's a good trade for both teams, honestly. Both players kind of wanted a fresh start. So I think it's a huge addition once he gets into the lineup for this Jets team, because Scheifele is already an elite center, and I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is well on his way to being elite center as well.
Yeah, I agree. I had a conversation with Jamie Thomas, the color guy on the radio broadcast for the Winnipeg Jets, and we were talking about Mark Scheifele, so I'm glad you mentioned his name. And we also mentioned Blake Wheeler and Kyle Connor. Those three guys all seem to play on the same team, but they all seem to be overlooked when you start talking about the best scorers, the best players, and it could be because of the market they are in. For you, those three guys right there, what do they bring to the table and how they help the Winnipeg Jets in their game plans?
Well, I just think their chemistry is so good. The top six on Winnipeg, it's tough to find a top six as deep as them. I mean, Nick Ehlers has filled in too. When Laine left, Ehlers has been unreal so far. So, yeah, those three guys, I think Scheifele is a Team Canada Olympic team contender. Whether he plays the wing or center is a different story, but I think he should make that team. He could make that team, I guess. I mean, he's probably on the outside a little bit, but he's so good. Scheifele is very underrated. I think he's not talked about enough. If he was in a Toronto or a Montreal type of market, I think that he's talked about constantly as being one of the best centers in the game. I couldn't speak more highly of Mark Scheifele. I think he's one of the better players in the NHL.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there, because that's exactly what Jamie Thomas was talking about too. He's like, Mark Scheifele is the kind of player that if he was in New York, it would be headlines and headlines about how good this guy is. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. Mark Scheifele is an underrated and sneaky good player, and the way that he helped in that Winnipeg offense is unbelievable. And him being a right-handed shot center just makes it a little bit better for me as well, because now you got that dynamic of one elite right-handed and one elite left-handed centerman in your top six. Unreal for the Winnipeg Jets. They are the Flames' opponent for the next three contests. In your mind, even if we've seen it once, how do these two teams stack up for you?
I think these two teams are very close and will be close throughout the entire season. I think these guys could be the 3-4 in the NHL's North Division. So every game's so big. It's so big, especially when you have a 3-game set against a team that's ahead of you in the standings right now. I know the Flames haven't played as many games as most teams, but it's huge. These 3 games are huge. I think these two teams, are very similar and will be very close in the standings. So the Flames need to build off their momentum after a very good defensive game against the Montreal Canadiens, and they need to go in and take on Winnipeg. And you got to hope for at least 2 out of 3 here. And Winnipeg struggled a bit against Vancouver. So we'll see. They'll be coming out hungry, I'm sure, as well. But this could be a season-defining 3-game set for the Calgary Flames. If they can get 4 or 5 points out of these 3 games, then it could really, really set them on the right path this season.
To think that these 3 games have a 12-point swing in them, potentially one way or the other, that's incredible to see. So we're looking forward to those games. Let's talk a little bit about the team to our north in Edmonton there and what we've seen from the Oilers in this season. At times they've looked really good, and at times they look like they have struggled, but it always comes back to the goaltending conversation. What are you seeing in between the pipes there for the Oilers?
I'm seeing a team that doesn't have a good starting goaltender. I mean, I don't think Koskinen is a starting goalie, in my opinion. Stuart Skinner got the start last night. Saw a lot of him in the WHL, being from Regina and being a huge Pats fan. I mean, he wasn't great, but they got the win last night. I don't know. I hate to say it, but I think they could use Mike Smith right now to take some starts away from Koskinen, because he kind of looked a little fatigued in the net before Stuart Skinner got the start. And yeah, I don't know. I think the Oilers probably have the worst goalie situation in the North Division.
Yeah, I'm a big Stuart Skinner fan, being a Leopard Hurricanes guy. Got to watch that guy from a rookie to before when he was traded there to the Broncos. So it's good to see him in the pipes last night. But you mentioned he didn't look overly good last night. But I wonder if that's more a product of the team in front of him. That team seems to play what I've called a lackluster structure, where it's all about the two big forwards and everyone else just falls in behind them. What do you see from how the Oilers are playing so far this year?
The Oilers don't look good defensively. I can tell you that for sure. Their defensive group there's a lot to be left to the imagination. So it's tough for goaltenders on that team, because it's kind of a run and gun type of thing. Let's hope we can score 6 goals and win kind of thing for this Edmonton Oilers team. And it works for them some nights. Look at last night. I mean, Draisaitl was 6 assists, and McDavid with 5 points as well. But if the Oilers aren't scoring 5 or 6 goals, it seems like they're losing games.
It's hard as well, because you look at last night's game, they gave up 5 as well.
Yeah.
So you score 8, but you gave up 5. It's interesting to see how that team is playing up north there. Don't want to pile on too much, but like you said, I think they could use a Mike Smith in net. Maybe that can help cool the tide a little bit. Out in Vancouver, they're also going through a little bit of a goaltender change, but they've looked good now that they've settled in. For a while there, it was touch and go for the Canucks. They turned it around. They looked really good against Winnipeg on Saturday. Just your overall thoughts on how the Canucks have looked at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it was a little worrisome for the Canucks fans for sure off the start of the year. Elias Pettersson wasn't putting the puck in the net. He looked uninterested in a few games almost, but he's found his game. Quinn Hughes is awesome. I mean, he has 11 points or something already and leads all defensemen in points. And it seems like Demko's kind of settled in a little bit as the starting goalie in Vancouver. They were alternating a lot. Holtby was okay. Demko was okay, but he's looked a little bit better in his last couple starts. So if he can take the job and run, then it softens the blow of Markstrom leaving a little bit, because Markstrom's look so good. So yeah, I think Vancouver's finally found their game, and they will be the team kind of competing in that 3 through 5 spot in the NHL's North Division. So it'll be interesting, but yeah, it seems like they've righted the ship a little bit here in Vancouver. Those
3 games against the Ottawa Senators seems to be a cure-all for them. They look really good. The rookie there, Hoglander, looks really good as well. So interesting to see how they move forward when they start playing what we'll quote-unquote call better teams in the division. They've got some important games coming up there as well. Awesome. It was nice to run around the North Division there with you, Riley, and it was nice to get some insights on the tip. Let's get to our bread and butter, and that's junior hockey talk. I know you're more of an AJHL guy than a WHL guy, but we'll get there. Let's start with the WHL. Alberta says, yeah, go ahead. Let's play some games. How awesome is it now to have a light at the end of the tunnel for some of this Western Hockey League?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I grew up as a Dub kid. I mean, being from Regina, there's no NHL team there. So I had season tickets with my grandpa for a long time. And I'm excited. I'm hoping the other provinces will give the green light. But if it's just Alberta, it's great that something like that can happen. And I mean, what would it be? 5 teams? Yeah, in the Alberta division. So I hope it follows through. I mean, there's a lot of teams playing out of the Saddle Dome now with the AHL coming. So hopefully the Hitmen can figure out a schedule there. But it's great. I mean, I love junior hockey so much. It definitely is my passion more than any other sport or league in the world. So if I can maybe sit in the press box for a few of those games, I'd be happy about that too. So hopefully they can get the ball rolling here and work something out with those 5 teams, and hopefully all the rest as time goes on.
I'm right there with you. I'm hoping that I can get back in the press box at the Hurricane games and go back to covering that team. It's junior hockey is amazing for me because you got these guys that know they're not going to be NHLers, but they still play for the passion of the game. And then you got these other kids who will be around that conversation of being NHLers, also playing for the love of the game. So I feel good for those kids who are draft eligible this season, a chance to show their skill. And I feel really good for the guys who are aging out of the system and a chance for them to end their careers on the ice rather than just watching the calendar flip by. Is there a particular group of players you're happiest for with this announcement?
I think it's the more 20-year-old guys that I lean to that have dedicated so much time over the past 4 or 5 seasons to their teams. A lot of them are part of the leadership group, and it would just be awful for them to kind of just go out with a whimper, no season at all in the WHL. So I'm very happy for those 20-year-old guys that are maybe trying to make one last impression before they play U Sport hockey or go over to Europe or whatever it may be, get an ECHL, AHL contract, and they get a little bit more tape. So yeah, I'm happy for them because the younger guys, they probably get another year or 2 in the dub anyway. So it's good. It's definitely good for those 20-year-olds to showcase their talents, even if it is whatever 20 games or whatever the schedule is going to be. So
yeah, I had a chance to quickly talk with Prefontaine, who was the captain of the Hurricanes last year. And he was gutted the way that the season ended, but he was also talking really highly of how it was to play in the WHL, and to see another group of guys go through that will be very disappointing if this doesn't go ahead. What is your outlook on other provinces, BC, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and the states, Oregon State, Washington State, on giving the go-ahead? How I guess, optimistic are you that we'll be able to get some of those other teams in there?
Well, I haven't heard much from Saskatchewan. I've heard that BC and Manitoba are deep in talks with the league. But you got to think that Saskatchewan and Manitoba would have to kind of combine for a division for sure. I mean, Manitoba only has 2 teams, I believe. So, Brandon and Winnipeg. So, and Sask is what? PA, Saskatoon, Regina, and Moose Jaw. So, yeah, I think you kind of have – and Swift Current, yes. So you have to combine the you have to put Manitoba somewhere, and Saskatchewan just makes the most sense. So I think for the Manitoba government and the league to give the go-ahead, I think Saskatchewan kind of has to be right there with them. I think BC could kind of run by themselves, so hopefully they can get it. And I'm assuming the U.S. teams would just play each other as well until some sort of playoff crossover. Maybe they can throw a bubble together. I'm not exactly sure, but I think Manitoba and BC are closer than the other 2 from what I've heard. I haven't heard a whole lot from Saskatchewan yet. Doesn't mean it's not happening, but hopefully everyone can kind of get it going. But at least Alberta, where we're living right now, is going. So we're selfishly happy about that.
It would be interesting to see Manitoba give the go-ahead, Saskatchewan not give the go-ahead, because that would, what would we do, a 24-game series between Brandon and Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Or would you move those teams into Alberta or something to help with that process? So that would be pretty interesting. So hopefully we can get that going and get that season going. I'm very much looking forward to the Western Hockey League and its return. You are a Regina Pats guy, so let's give a little bit of a rundown of what you expect, even in a condensed schedule, from the Regina Pats this year.
Well, I mean, Connor Bedard is there now, so yep. There's a lot of hopefulness in the Regina Pats organization. It's definitely a rebuild type of team right now, as that's why they got the first overall pick kind of thing. So it might be a tough season for them. I wouldn't expect much of a playoff push or for them to be an elite team by any means. But if Connor Bedard showcases the ability that everyone thinks he has, it'll give a lot of hope. And hopefully next year when we get a full season, cross my fingers, this team can take another step. But yeah, I don't think anyone's thinking the Pats are making a run to the Memorial Cup by any means, but maybe just a light at the end of the tunnel for a team that since they've hosted the Memorial Cup in 2018 has kind of not been as good. So it's nice to see an elite player come to this team. We've had the Sam Steeles, the Jordan Eberleys around the organization before. So he's the next one. And there's very much excitement around the Regina Pats organization because of it.
Yeah, they went all in that 2018 year too when they were hosting it, and now this is the fruits of those labors or downturn in the junior hockey schedule, and they're coming back. What have you seen from Bernard yourself that gets you so excited about him playing for Regina?
Well, he went to Sweden to practice. I believe it was with a U18 Sweden team. And reports that I've heard was that he was the best player on the ice. And he's 15 years old. So I'm very excited. I think that he has so much potential. He's the first exceptional player in Dub history. So it's a huge deal, I think. And I'm just so excited. I think we'll only probably see him until he's 18 years old and probably goes very early in that draft. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 seasons, the Pats can make a strong push. But this kid's going to be special, and it's going to be very, very fun to watch him for the next 3 seasons.
He right now is a man trapped in a boy's body, and when he fills out and actually starts to be able to use that strength he has, it's kind of scary the kind of things that he's able to do now. Can't imagine what he's going to be able to do in a couple of years when he gets developed in there. Other Saskatchewan teams, the Swift Current Broncos, they were coming off a championship a couple of years ago. They're also rebuilding a little bit. For you then, who is the team to beat in the Saskatchewan division?
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel like I haven't seen hockey in so long, but Saskatoon Blades seem to be pretty good before all this happened. So they could be up there. Swift Current I don't think is I think they're probably a step below the Pats even. I think that both teams were not very good. Moose Jaw wasn't great either. All 3 of them kind of went all in that 2018 season when that division was probably the best in maybe all of Canada, when you had Swift Current, Regina, and Moose Jaw all at the top there. So all 3 of them kind of rebuilders right now. PA, I think, they've been really good the last season when we actually played, and the season before that. So maybe PA, maybe Saskatoon would probably be the team to watch out of Saskatchewan in this shortened season if it does happen.
I remember back in 2018 and 2017, the Lethbridge Hurricanes were also really good during that time, and they always just fell a little bit short of winning the Central Division. But they were right there, and they went through the gauntlet of Regina and Swift Current a couple of times, and were unable to get over the hump through the Eastern Conference standings. What do you see from the Lethbridge Hurricanes on your end headed into the new season?
I think Lethbridge could possibly take that next step this year. It seems, you're right. It seems like they're always in the talk, in the mix as one of the good teams in the WHL, but they can never just take that next step. So I'm not sure what to expect from them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're up in that top half of the division, top couple spots, because it seems like that's where they always are. So we'll see if they can actually take that step, and if it's just Alberta that's playing, it'll be an interesting run, because you're always scared of Edmonton as well, and Lethbridge could be that next team.
It also depends as well if Lethbridge is going to get Dylan Cousins back from the Buffalo Sabres. He's looked really good in his pro debut games here. They're coming up to the decision on the 7th game, whether to send him back or to keep him. So that's big X factor for the Lethbridge Hurricanes. We'll see how that works out. There's one team in this division that seems to be an NHL factory, and that's the Medicine Hat Tigers. I don't know what it is about Medicine Hat or how that program's run, but they always seem to pump up the NHL talent. What are you seeing from Medicine Hat being so close in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, Medicine Hat always was good. It seemed like even when I was growing up, it's always Medicine Hat up there, and they come to Regina. And when I was growing up, the Pats were never great, honestly. So it was Medicine Hat beating them up all the time. I'm not sure what it is. It could be coaching.
Yeah.
Their drafting seems to be very good. So I don't know. It's frustrating as someone that has to deal with the Medicine Hat Tigers all the time. But I'm sure that they'll be a good team again whenever this 24 game or whatever it is season starts up. It's so tough to tell, because it's been forever. It's been a full year that we haven't seen these WHL players. So you kind of go, oh yeah, that team was really good. I forgot about them. And some guys have moved on to the NHL. So it'll be interesting to see, but yeah, it's Medicine Hat. I'm sure will do Medicine Hat things this season.
Close to where you are right now, playing out of the same building as the Flames, will be the Calgary Hitmen. They have found themselves a decent goaltender in Jack McNaughton. What else are you seeing from the Hitmen ahead of the hopeful shortened season here?
Well, I think the Hitmen, it seemed like they were taking a step when the season got shut down there, and I know they lost out, but it's I saw some potential from that team last year. It seems like forever ago. I can't believe it's only been March, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw potential from the Hitmen, and I think that they're a good young team. They've got some potential there. I don't know. I haven't watched them in so long, but yeah, Jack McNaughton should be able to, a year older, should be able to guide this team to a pretty respectable record. It seems like they lose a lot of players as well, but who knows? I think all these Alberta teams, they all have potential to be very good hockey teams. We'll have to see about the Hitmen. They're going to be in tough with teams like Edmonton and Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. So it'll be a battle for them, but we'll just have to see how the season plays out. I think that they should be able to take that next step this year.
Much like the NHL bubble, I said that the team that was the most mentally strong might be the team to win it all, and we saw that with Tampa Bay winning. A team like the Hitmen are led by someone who is very mentally strong, and Jeff Chanel at the top there. And I think that could give that team maybe a bit of an edge going into the season, knowing that he'll have his coach and his team prepared for this shortened season. I'm very much looking forward to it. I know it's hard to predict, and I asked some hard questions there, so I appreciate your insight on the Western Hockey League. But let's move on here to the AJHL. This is a league that started, a couple of teams got a couple of games in there, but they had to shut down. What is the latest from around the AJHL that you've heard in the restart of this league?
I haven't heard a whole lot coming from this league as of right now. I know that they were able to get a preseason, I guess, development season, they called it, going, and then a few regular season games before Alberta kind of shut down as a whole. And I know that Canmore, basically their entire team, got COVID at one point. So it's tough. I mean, I don't think they have a whole lot of money to do the testing like an NHL or a WHL would be able to do. So it's tough. I mean, they're young guys that, you're telling them to stay at billet parents' houses or, not go out. They have to do school from home probably. There's just a lot of factors that make me think that it's going to be tough for junior A hockey to get going again this year. It just, bringing kids, I'm sure a lot of the kids are back home right now. Mm-hmm. So to bring them all back, have their billet parents who are probably, going to work still. And, there's just a lot of factors that make it hard for junior A type players to get a season going again, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. The news that the WHL got and the green light they got to play the games, I wonder if that is a positive for the AJHL in the sense that there might be some help on the way for them as well to get the rest of their season in as well. Are you optimistic at all for a season, or are we still saying it's a 50-50 here?
I'm always optimistic. I mean, I hope it gets going as, I go to almost all the Calgary Canucks games. I broadcast a few of them as well. I think the Canucks have really built a pretty competitive roster this year. So, yeah, of course I'm optimistic. It's maybe they can do a shortened season like the WHL did where, you just play South Division, North Division, which I think they were trying to do anyway before the shutdown happened. So it's I'm optimistic, but it's kind of got to happen sooner than later here. A lot of the players have opted to go to college or the USHL and stuff like that. So there's going to be a few players that are going to be missing if we do get a season going again. But yeah, hopefully it does. But I'm more on the it might not happen side, which is sad for me to say.
Yeah, it's unfortunate as well. We see a lot of player movement in this league, and the Canucks had a lot of that. And they also rebranded not too long ago either. Heading into this season, there was a little bit of positive around the Canucks for the first time in a while. What were you seeing out of the Canucks organization ahead of the 2020 and 2021 season?
Well, the biggest thing is that they traded for Brett Morvis from Okotoks, who is going to college next year. So they're only going to get 1 year from him, but he is unbelievable. I've been covering the Canucks since I think 15-16 season. And he is probably the best 16, 17-year-old that they've had ever. He's so good with the puck. He's so smart. He's not afraid to get physical. He wins a lot of draws. He plays penalty kill, power play. He's everywhere on the ice. So it was nice to have an elite type junior A 17-year-old on the team. They have Dylan Clark there, who's a 19-year-old who he's probably been their best player last year and probably the second best player this year. And they have Connor Bertamini, who's a good 19-year-old. So it's sad because it seemed like this was a team that has been in the basement kind of for the past couple years. Mm-hmm. And was going to be able to compete with the Oilers, with the Bennetts. I'm not saying they were going to beat them in a playoff series or anything like that, but it wasn't going to be like the 7-1, 8-1 type scores that we were seeing the past couple of years between these two teams. So it's tough to see, and the rebrand is going well. I love their jerseys. I think they look great. They're trying to get more people into the buildings. Obviously, they couldn't now, but the broadcast has gotten a lot better. It's probably the best junior or U Sport broadcast that I've got to work with in terms of product quality. They have replays and all that now, which before, when I was with the Canucks, before it got taken over by new ownership, I believe you were just praying your microphone was going to work that night. So it's been great. I think they've done a great job with the team, and I really, really hope that this team can showcase at least a little bit of their ability, because they're definitely taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's well said there. I'm quite a big fan of the logo and the jerseys myself. The Calgary Canucks went through in that rebrand. I was really looking forward to how they would perform on the ice because of the things you have mentioned there. Some really good talent they brought in. So it's unfortunate the season got canceled, or paused, I guess would be the word to say. The other former Calgary team, the Mustangs, unfortunately that franchise couldn't work out. They have now been moved to Black Falls. They're now called the Bulldogs. What is your excitement level to see the Bulldogs come into the AJ?
I'm very excited. I'm mostly excited because we'll have an even amount of teams in the South Division again. So that'll be a little bit better for playoffs and all that kind of stuff. It kind of messed up the playoffs a little bit the past year or two, but it's cool. I think the new facility. Have you seen the virtual walkthrough of that new facility? Yep. Oh my goodness,
unreal! I
can't believe that's a Junior A facility.
No kidding.
It's going to be the most beautiful rink in the AJHL for sure. And I would want to go there if I was a player. I know they've signed a bunch of midget AAA or U18 AAA guys now, I guess it's called. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I can't wait to get there and watch a hockey game because that building looks unbelievable.
Yeah, this looks like it's going to be a great place to call a game as well. I'm looking forward to myself getting up there and getting in there. Hopefully maybe part of a broadcast team of some sort down the line here. The other end of the spectrum from the Canucks and the Bulldogs has been the powerhouses called the Brooks Bandits and the Okotoks Oilers. What makes these two teams so successful year after year?
Well, I think it's their recruiting, and it might be the recruiting budget, because I'm pretty sure that Brooks had about 6 guys from Alberta on their team to start the season. So, they go out and get good players. And there's 2 philosophies. Some people think that you should develop Alberta players from within in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, and teams like Brooks disagree with that philosophy, and there's no right answer to it. No. I mean, it's fun to watch Brooks play. They have so many good players. I mean, probably 80% of their roster goes Div 1. So, I mean, the point is to advance kids to a scholarship Div 1 type of opportunity. So they do a great job, but I mean, it's just the other teams I don't feel like have the budget maybe to recruit that some of the other teams do. I think Okotoks does a really good job from within. There's a lot of local talent on that team, and they're fun to watch. I love going to games in Okotoks and seeing them play. And, my buddy Gino DePaoli does a great job with that team and those broadcasts. So, it starts with recruiting, and those are 2 very good teams at doing that.
Spoiler alert, Gino DePaoli will be on the show in a couple of weeks here once he gets his laptop fixed, and how he puts it. So looking forward to that chat as well. I've heard him on the radio a few times talk about that recruiting process and how the Okotoks Oilers go out and they execute their game plan and seem to get their guys that they want. Same with the Brooks Bandits. They do the exact same thing. And they're able to get these players, and they're just such a fun team to watch. It's incredible that they can continue that high standard year in and year out. In the North Division, there doesn't seem to ever be that runaway team amongst those guys in the North Division. I'm not sure why that is or if there's an answer to it, but what are you seeing out of the North Division around this year?
Well, Spruce Grove has been unreal for quite a few years, and it seemed like in the exhibition season that maybe they had lost a step, and we'll have to see. But Sherwood Park was really, really good last year. They had Savoy there and I can't remember. I'm blanking on the names, but they had a couple guys at the top of this scoring race. So it's Sherwood Park was really good. I believe they lost their top 2 or 3 scorers, so we'll have to see. But it seems wide open in the North Division at the start of the season. So I'm not sure why it is that they maybe don't have a consistent number one, but I would say that Spruce is probably that consistent one up until maybe this season. So, well, I mean, it was South and North split up this year, so I was more concentrated on the South Division when the season started. But yeah, it seemed like it was wide open up north to start the season this year.
The Fort McMurray Oil Barons got 4 games in. They won all 4 of those games. Is that a mirage, or is that team going to be that good in your opinion?
I think over the last couple of years, Fort McMurray really has looked pretty good. It seems like they've taken a step each year. So yeah, maybe they are the next top team in the North Division. I could see that happening for sure. You could see it coming. You could see them slowly start moving up the standings from developing from a young roster to what they are now. And this could be Fort McMurray's year if they do get a season in.
Yeah, hopefully they can finish the season. I do have one question from a listener. I'm going to read it here so I don't get it wrong. And it's kind of it's one of those questions like I'm not sure we do have an answer for, but we'll do it. He asks our thoughts on the AJHL. If this season is done, so it's an if question, should any provisions be provided in 21-22 to season to extend the age of eligibility? What are your thoughts on that?
I would have no problem with having, four 21-year-olds or what, like an overager, like it is with the 20-year-olds. Yeah, that's no problem for me, but it's tough when if you do that, because then you have, 4 20-year-olds, 4 21-year-olds, and, almost half your roster is overage players. Maybe if they went to a 6 for next year, where you could have 6 20 or 21-year-olds on your team as overagers, I'd be okay with that. But I'm not sure that you can have a full set of 21-year-olds to extend their eligibility. I mean, a lot of these kids can go to U Sport or ACAC after anyway. I mean, I'm sure a few of them want to just, if they're not going to the next level, want to just get on with schooling or whatever the next step may be. I mean, if you're 20 or 21 and you haven't got that Div 1 scholarship yet, it's getting kind of late for that. So a lot of those kids go the U Sport route. So yeah, I would have no problem extending it to a 21-year-old overager, but they would have to figure out the logistics of it for sure.
Yeah, lots of logistics figured out there. It's interesting thoughts, and I agree with you there. I like how you worded it there. So thank you, Ben, for that question. Hopefully that answers what you were looking for. I'm not sure how much you're paying attention to women's hockey, but if you are, let's talk a little bit about the bubble. The NWHL has a bit of a bubble going on right now for their championship. How invested are you in that tournament?
I've watched a couple of the Toronto 6 games. They've looked really good since their opening game. I believe they locked up the first place in their division. So there's been some controversy in the NWHL as well regarding certain sports organizations and their participation in the league. And a team's dropped out because of COVID. So it hasn't been without the bumps and bruises. But, hey, I'm fully a proponent of women's hockey. I miss the Calgary team here. The Inferno was fun to watch. We covered them on 960. I went to a couple games there as well. It's I Olympics-wise, the Canada-US women's rivalry might be the best rivalry in sport. So, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of women's hockey, and I'll definitely be watching the playoff rounds in the NWHL.
I was a little gutted that the Metro team dropped out because I picked them. I didn't have a team in this league coming into the season, and I just jumped on the wagon. I had no reason behind it other than I just picked a team, and then they go ahead and they drop out. So I'm a little disappointed in there, but we've seen some really good hockey from Buffalo, from the Sixes. Is there a clear favorite for you to win this tournament, or are you just going to stick with the Toronto team there?
Oh, it's a tough one for me. Kind of like Minnesota as well.
Yes.
It'll be tough. I'm gonna go with Toronto, but I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota pulls something out too.
Interesting that they went with the nickname of White Caps when there's really no ocean there, but that's okay. It's a great tournament. It's good hockey. If you have a chance to check it out, go ahead and check it out. Riley, this has been a ton of fun. I appreciate you joining me on the show today. But I have to get one non-hockey question in here before we leave. It is Super Bowl week in the NFL. Anyone who follows me or knows me knows exactly where I lie in this conversation. Who is your Super Bowl pick?
I honestly hope I'm wrong, but I think Tampa Bay is going to pull it off. I want KC to win, but it's Tom Brady. He just always finds a way. I don't know. It hurts my feelings as a Falcons fan to pick Tampa, but yeah, I'm going to go with Tampa, and I'm sorry.
It's all good because I know you're going to be wrong, and that's fine with me. So
Perfect.
It's going to be
I hope so.
It's going to be a very good, interesting match. A lot of people are calling this GOAT versus the future GOAT. I'm not going to go that far, but this is going to be a dynamic offense going up a defense that can hold them and not hold them still, and then vice versa. You got another really good Tom Brady-led offense with a defense who seems to rise to the occasion when it matters. So it's going to be a good chess match too between coaches Andy Reid and Bruce Arians. Thank you so much, Riley, for your time today. I appreciate your thoughts on NHL, WHL, AJHL hockey. I know you have a few different podcasts and shows out there yourself. So anyone who's looking for you, where can they find you on Twitter?
Yeah, we have a football podcast wrapping up season 3 here when the Super Bowl wraps up until the CFL starts. That's at Squid Kick Radio. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can just follow me on my personal Twitter at Fan960Riley if more hockey related, I would say, on that one.
Awesome. Look forward to hearing you back on the radio, Riley. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a blast.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining me on the debut show for the Amateur Sports Television and on my show, Double Digit Hockey Podcast. Don't forget, you can find me on Twitter at VintageJohnny84, or you can find Double Digit Hockey at DD Hockey Podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today, and have a fabulous day.